I gotta tell you, it's great to talk to you. I loved Werewolves Within. I thought that was fantastic, and once again, you're killing it with Hard Eye. So congrats on a great film.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad you dig them.
All right, so let's start with literally where the sausage is being made, right? Because I look at your writers here, Murphy, Landon, Michael Kennedy. These guys have a great track record doing horror comedies. They're working with you. You've got a great track record. How did you guys all get together? And was their script ready for you when you came into the process?
The script is ready for me. It's still, as all shoots require. Had some adjustments as we were filming. There's all kinds of last minute, things that happen and rewrites that need to happen and adjustments and polishing and actors come aboard and you're just kind of, constantly rewriting and polishing. But the thing was ready for me. And it was Michael Kennedy that messaged me. He's a good buddy. We've written a few specs together and he said, I have this thing and it's going to go and I think you'd kill it. And give it a read. And he slipped it to me. And I thought this could be an amazing challenge.
So, without revealing spoilers to our audience, there are some hilarious monologues in the film that really poke a good eye to the romantic comedy genre, right? So was
Mhm.
that in the script or did you add that with your humor and your comedic, background as filming went along?
If it's there's a couple monologues that come to mind. There was one where the monologues are quite genuine and vulnerable, but there's a there's something else happening in the scene to kind of undercut or subvert that interaction. And then there's one that is very outwardly comic and probably the most winking to my rom-com influences. Both of those were last minute ads. Both of those were late decisions and definitely influenced by all manner of I don't know, my comedic background and yet admiration for the rom-com genre, that's for sure.
That's something I want to follow up on because I mean, you started as a comedian and you have all these great improv skills. And so when
Mhm.
you're working with these fine actors, and Olivia and Mason are tremendous here, and we'll get to them. I mean, they must feel more comfortable asking you like, "Hey, am I better this way, that way?" Do they take direction better from someone who's been an actor, been in their shoes?
I think so. I try to speak to my actors, like I would like to be spoken to, and mainly that all starts with a vibe. You have to be confident as the crew's captain, but you also need to set the precedent or create the kind of playground where actors feel like they can take risks. And yeah, I mean, Sam Richardson for phrase this delicately to me. He's like Josh kind of mimics you very subtly. And it is the best way for me as an actor to kind of relay. I don't know why I do it, or how I do it. I've done it since I was a kid. I'm just like a natural mimic, but there's just a very slight thing that I do to kind of put myself in their shoes and just kind of gently nudge my way of doing it in their voice, I guess you could say, but it's not so outward. It's kind of like a nudge, and I think actors appreciate it when it's an example of something that I think is theoretically well executed, but I don't always have the answers. Um, I think it's way more important to give them the opportunity to just try stuff so that I can see. So that's my cat. I can see what they're going to do, and then go, oh man, I think that's close, but what if, what if, what if? So sometimes it's sculpting, and sometimes it's yeah, not always a line reading, but I do think they appreciate it coming from an actor as opposed to someone who's just outwardly technical.
I bring it up because, I've seen your work and you do a great job with these ensemble scenes where there's a lot of stuff going on. Obviously in, this film, the hard ice killer is slashing, there's big twists and there's a lot of bloody murder going on. But then, your ensemble, Mason, Olivia, Jordana, Devon, the king of horror, of horror films, they're also present in the moment. I always figure that, this got to be the director really bringing the scene together. And so when you have these great scenes, like the ending in the middle of the police station when they're all kind of together,
Mhm.
how do you make that sausage? Talk about that magic in particular.
We always meet up and just kind of talk about it and just kind of read it, and there are always surprises. And so my I have to keep all kind of nerve endings, all antenna out and ready for anything and sensitive to what every actor might need. So it always starts with, let me just see you do it. You know you need to walk to the door, but oh my God, Jordana, when you close the door on Devon, there's this, I can actually see you through the glass, and that might be a really funny comedic moment. Holy shit, let's just hold there for a second because it's hysterical. And Devon, because we can see you through the glass, why don't you keep staring? And then take a beat and nod and walk away. And then you have all the subtext of the scene itself. Okay, so then what happens after the fact? Let me just see you do it. Let me see you do it. Everything always starts from let me see you do it. Or we know we know when we start the scene, you have to do this and you have to do that. Let me see you do it. And then, the actors do so much of the work for you. My job is to capture it. Um, and photograph it in such a way that is emotionally profound for the audience and lands comedically. So, I don't often like to shoot people from the side. I like faces. I like, how the Coen brothers shoot, right up in people's grills. I like Spielberg. I like low angles. And, I think there's a lot of it is intuition, but I think also I might have to have the privilege of starting as an actor. So just kind of going by my gut in that regard from an emotional lead.
Uh, All right, so let's talk about, Mason and Olivia, your primary leads. They're great. And what I wrote in my review was you actually care about these people, in a lot of like horror films or horror com films, if they become mincemeat, a lot of times you don't really care, and then it makes the film less valuable because it's basically just a slaughterhouse from step one to step
Right.
10. But the great thing about Olivia and Mason is, wow, you believe this instant attraction, this idea that these two are meant to be together and they're fighting fate, to stave it off. And so when the poop hits the fan, you're really, rallying for them. So, talk about, getting them where they were your first choices, were you auditioning, how they come to the roles.
You're always going to have lists and lists and lists upon lists of talent with the studio. And when these two both became available, I wasn't incredibly familiar with their work. I was more familiar with Mason's work than I was with Liv's. The most important thing to me was the background check. Are they going to be cool people? We're traveling across the world. Are they going to be down to clown? Are they going to want to try stuff? And where are they in their careers? Have they done something like this before? One of the things I really love to do in my movies is cast people who haven't yet had the opportunity to do the thing that we're bringing them in to do. And it was really exciting to be able to bring in two great human beings who also happen to be wonderful actors to do something they hadn't quite done before, to lead a film in this way. And we didn't have time to do a chemistry read, but they got off the plane and they hit it off like gangbusters. And just as important as the two of them, there was an equal chemistry with Gigi Zimbato, who plays Monica, with Olivia. The girls got along just as much as Olivia and Mason got along. So those two love stories in that respect are electric, and they're profound in their own ways. But it was a total gamble. I just went, okay, you're great people and you're down, so it's got to work together. You're both going to be willing, and that was why I felt okay to take the gamble. Why we all did.
Yeah, Gigi is great. I mean, one of her monologues is what I was saying earlier was one of the highlights of the film, but let's not spoil it for the viewers slash readers. All right, so another thing that you do great here, and I think is extremely important success of your film, is the gore quota is horror realistic, but then it's also campy where it's not also too realistic to like really be too overboard as well. And I find that line to be very hard to straddle, and you've done it very well in Werewolves Within and in this movie. And so I believe you filmed in New Zealand, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So talk about the practical makeup effects and prosthetics. Was that a local crew? Did you guys bring your own crew in? Because it looks so good and it really adds a lot to the movie.
It really, really does. We had an incredible special effects makeup team led by Steph Knight, who was fantastic. The mask was made by Tony Gardner, who's a legend in its own right here in LA. But yeah, Steph's first question was, what's the tone for the gore? And luckily, pretty much the entire team that we worked with had just completed Evil Dead Rise. And so I said, well, I love the way the blood looked on Evil Dead Rise. I don't necessarily like the nihilism of horror, but I love Sam Raimi. I love Drag Me to Hell. I love The Thing, John Carpenter. None of it ever feels nihilistic to me. It always feels fun, and there's always a kind of comfort in the imperfection of great practical effects. I always knew I wanted practical effects, and then the kind of, straddling the line often has to do with not necessarily the effect itself. You want that to be quite realistic. Unless I'm telling Steph I really want to see, the stretching or the breaking apart of some appendage or something. It becomes about calibrating that in the edit. How long are we going to hold on this thing? How long? How excruciating do we want to make it for the audience? I mean, me, I'm a lightweight. I really can't watch, the really intense stuff. So it just becomes about getting everything, making sure we have everything in the can. And then once you're in the edit, putting all the stuff together, all the ingredients together, the music, the pacing, and then just test it, show buddies. What do you think? Is it too much? Is it too little? Do you want to go more? But I think I've got a pretty good sense of certainly what my line is, and that's where I always start.
You really do, mate, because I mean, what happens in the beginning, that great opening scene and the great ending scene, I think nails that perfect, gore quota between campy and realism. So fans will be, I think, real happy with that. So let's talk about HEK, the actual hard eyes killer, and the look of it, because I saw the
Mm,
film completely cold and I was extremely amused and entertained, but also like, wow, this is pretty badass because you don't really normally
yeah.
see something so well crafted. Because I mean, the goggles with the infrared, the I wrote, the crossbow shooting better than Robin Hood, the monogram knives.
Mm.
It's not like it's just Michael Myers running through the woods with a, freaking William Shatner mask turned on inside out, just hacking away. There's a complexity to your killer. So talk about crafting HEK. What are the inspirations? How do you get to this guy?
It was integral to my pitch to get the gig, right? I mean, there was minimal description for the killer in the script. I think outside of, a twisted version of the hard eyes emoji, I think he had a machete and a crossbow. So my thinking was, well, what's the only slasher I ever saw with a utility belt? And I kept thinking about Jason Lives. The script read very much like, Tom McLaughlin's Sixth Entry in the Friday the 13th franchise. And I love Jason Lives. It's equal parts silly and dreadful. And it has beautiful blue moonlight and wonderful texture. And it's legitimately scary, but it's also fun. A little too silly. I want to replicate that tonally here, but I just thought, okay, let's kind of fan fiction out. Let's blow out the Jason Lives thing. Everything I wanted Jason to be when I saw Jason 6 as a 6-year-old. I loved Batman as much as I love that movie. So why don't we give him a full-on utility belt with more tools of death? Um, the light up eyes were completely my addition. He did not have night vision in the movie, but that was one of the first things I said was the dude has these heart-shaped eyes. It's a Valentine's Day movie. We are begging for that imagery. We are begging for red eyes in the dark, like an Ivan Earl image or something. And you just take swings as a director. Say, no skin off my back, but if I'm to come aboard, here are all the things I want to see. Because as a horror fan and a member of this community, I like buying the T-shirts and the Nika figures and the merch. Let's give people merch. Let's give people a reason to cosplay and dress up like this dude for Halloween. And so there was even more that was not included in the film that hopefully if we get to do this again, I can level it up and do it in a part two if we're allowed. But I just sort of said, how much like a super villain can we make this dude? And they went for it, thank goodness.
All right, so you're leading to my next question, so I'm glad you went there. So you're scoring above 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. My review's already on there. There's a lot of
Thank you.
good swell coming towards you. So I never want to curse anybody, but I think you have a big hit. I think you're going to really blow up the box office because a lot of anticipation in our fan base for your film.
Mm.
So you refer to it. I mean, are you signed for sequels? Do you have an idea for two, three, four? If it ends up being like a Scream franchise?
I don't know about a 3 and a 4, but we are, Chris and Michael and we're immediately in the studio actually, we're immediately on the same page about, okay, what if you could? And we all went to the same place. which I can't say. But as far as Hard Eyes, I'll just say again, there are easily more toys. There's easily more stuff that he can do. There's more action to be done. You can almost take any rom-com setup from Pretty Woman to, Bridget Jones's Diary and have Hard Eyes intercept. And you could have, so I think so long as we never let up on the genuine feels, on the delivery of the rom-com element, you never wink at it or wink at it too much, and you floor it on the horror, I think then we're cooking. Like if you make it just as good a rom-com as anything Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan ever did, and just as good a horror as anything Wes Craven ever could, then that's the real success of it in my mind. Not to take it too far in any direction of camp or otherwise, but to just kind of say like, no, let's have fun and let's make it legitimately nasty. I think we're, while giving people butterflies in the tummy, I think we're in good shape.
Bravo, great answer. All right, so let me get to my last two questions
Hmm.
here. And thanks for your time, by the way, and
Oh my
fabulous
God,
to
please.
hop on.
These are great questions, Julian. Thank you.
All right, so I looked on the interweb, IMDb here, and see what you got coming up next. And it looks like you've already done Green Bank with Tatiana Maslany. Can you talk about that?
Unfortunately, we haven't done it yet, but I've been dying to make Green Bank. Jasmine Savoy Brown and Tatiana Maslany have been attached to this alien invasion thriller that takes place in an actual town where radio signal technology is banned, so as not to intercept with essentially the world's largest telescope. And we have some exciting developments, but it's tough to make a movie. I just happen to have this kind of crazy luck that I do not take for granted since 2020, my two movies came out back to back during COVID, but the fact that I've continued to be able to work or survive through, the last few years, despite wildfires and strikes and a global pandemic and such, that luck ain't lost on me. But Green Bank, I'm dying to do it. There's nothing official about the production on the books yet, but I can't wait to do it. It's just another excuse to continue to make horror with practical effects and with great people.
Bravo, bravo. So are you doing anything now, or are you just kind of standing pat and see what your next move is?
What I technically have on the docket is I was just commissioned to write a screenplay, which is really exciting. And so right after press, pretty much south of February 14th, I'm gonna head to the desert with my wife and our cats and catch up on a metric ton of reading and writing. One of which I can say I've been dying to adapt my first film into a stage play for some time. So Scare Me will
Wow.
will make it to the stage at some point, hopefully debuting in New York.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so for my last question is,
Hmm.
just looking back at your career, and obviously you're still a young guy, so I'm not saying you're like 100 years old here, but I see so many like actors, aspiring filmmakers who kind of want to do it all, kind of want to be filmmakers and writers and so on and so forth. And you've kind of earned your way to every level and are just getting better and better and better. So when our fans see the movie and they love the movie and they see this interview and they really like, oh man, I want to be like Josh. How can I be like Josh? What's the advice you can give these guys who are kind of grunting out there trying to become writers, actors, directors, etc.?
Write as specifically to yourself and to what you like as possible. Don't write for me or for Julian or for a studio. You write for yourself. Write to your own nightmares, to your own experiences, to your own specifics. Get as specific to the thing that stinks of you as possible. I highly recommend reading Mark and J. Duplass's book, Like Brothers. That was the book that inspired me to make my own thing. They talk about the $1 short, the $10 short, the $1,000 short, $1,000 movie, whatever. It's easier today to make stuff and share stuff, but it's the toughest today because there's so much stuff. So the only way you can cut through is by getting specific, because the more specific you are, the more likely you are to tap into that thing in your audience. It's like, oh my God, I went through exactly that specific thing. That is so human, and that is such an interesting way and such an interesting lens through which to see that experience. I have to see what this person's going to do next. So write for yourself, don't write for anyone else, and make stuff with your buddies. Like even if it's truly, even if it's just putting on a little play in a backyard, filming it on your phone, go for it. There's no wrong answer, and just keep doing it. You have to just keep doing it, doing it, doing it.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. Really appreciate your time. Loved your movie. Can't wait to see your upcoming stuff in the future.
Thank you so much, Julian. Great interview. Love to talk to you again.